As entrepreneurs, we can't do this journey alone, and we actually really shouldn't try. Building a sustainable business means knowing when to bring on the right support. And in today's audience, we're breaking down the key questions that you need to ask before you hire your next service provider or support team member so that you can make smart, aligned decisions that truly move your business forward. So here we go.
Welcome to the Grow Your Business for Good show. This is a place where coaches and consultants gather so you can learn how to lead a world-class business that does not tax your time, your energy, or your financial resources. We are your hosts, M. Shannon Hernandez
and Amy Hager of the Joyful Business Revolution. And our number one goal is to bring you clarity and insight on how to grow your business for good. All right. Well, I'm super excited today. I'm Amy Hager, organic marketing mentor here at the Joyful Business Revolution. Welcome, 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 wherever you're joining me today. I actually have a guest today and not Shannon. So you're going to hear a new voice on our podcast today. But one thing that we're really proud of here at the Joyful Business Revolution that we've been able to do is to bring on the right support as we've grown and expanded our business. It's so key into having that sustainable business. And a lot of times when we leave our careers, we're leaving things behind like 401k plans, we're leaving health insurance behind, we're leaving a technology person at our company or that we bring in that really supports us with technology and helps us learn what we need to do and helps us pick our technology. Usually you're leaving behind a bookkeeper. And so those are all the types of support services that we have to be able to find to really help us stay in our zone of genius as CEOs and as business owners. And, obviously, when you first start your business, you probably can't do this all at once. I do suggest doing this baby step style. That is the big thing to be focusing on when you're growing sustainably. But we can't stay stuck trying to figure things out on our own. And so I think it's really important to make sure that people that we're bringing on have the knowledge, the skills, and the desire to actually help us and meet us where we're at. So that brings on my fabulous guest, Eliu, today. And he's really going to dive in a little bit about how he does this with his clients. We're going to give you some ideas of some questions that you should be asking when you're looking to bring on support. But before we get into all of that, Eliu, who are you? Where are you? And what do you do in this world, my friend?
Hi, Amy. Thank you so much for that introduction. It's a pleasure to be here. Great to have met you and Shannon and all the other wonderful people that I got the chance to meet in Miami a few weeks back.
Yeah.
Eliu Vinas. I'm an expert health insurance advisor. I do only health insurance. I make that my only focus. That way I can know all the ins and outs of the industry and really help people when it comes to their health insurance specifically, not dealing with other forms of insurance, car insurance, um, property and casualty. There's plenty of referral partners that I can refer you to, but I specialize in health insurance. A proud husband and dad of a 5-year-old living here
Mhm.
in Miami, Florida, where I was raised. And however, I am licensed across all the states or most of the states. And like I always like to say, I can help anyone, anywhere in our country when it comes to their health insurance.
I love that. And I think that is the one thing that was really great about having you at our content creation on location event is because we were working on your story. I've gotten to know you so well. And I think that we obviously believe there is power in story. And so it is interesting to hear like your entrepreneurial journey. How did you land with where you're at and why are you actually doing this? So can you give us kind of the high cliff notes of this?
Yeah, absolutely. I spent an entire career, almost 15 years in the food industry, working with entrepreneurs in the food industry. And I specifically was the director of new business development and sales and marketing for these organizations. My job was to travel around the country, meet with the corporate headquarters of the large supermarket chains in our country, and get the items placed onto those stores. Along the way, I always, even though I never really got too involved with health insurance, I did kind of serve as a resource just because the entrepreneurs I was working with mostly were foreigners. They were from outside of the US. And so they had a bit of an adjustment period, understanding how different the health insurance industry in our country is versus other countries. And so on a high level, I guess I was always somewhat involved with health insurance, but all that really quickly changed when back in 2009, I had a really serious car accident and
Mm.
hospitalized for 28 days, spending 8 days in a coma and intensive care. And it was kind of like the universe really showing me how important, number one, it is not only to have health insurance, but secondly, how important having the right coverage in place
Mm.
is.
Yeah.
And I needed it at that time. And that was really a moment where I said, you know what, now I'm going to take this knowledge that I have gathered not only with my recent personal event, but also over the years and really use that to help other people.
I love that. And so one thing that you've said is you only focus on health insurance. And there's a ton of other insurances out there, right? We have health insurance, we car insurance, home insurance, I mean, renters insurance. There's a ton of insurances out there. And so I always find it interesting when a service provider focuses on one piece within that larger industry. And so, why is it important to you to have only healthcare as your focus? Like, why aren't you providing the other insurances?
Well, because it is my desire as a business to really do the best for the customers, providing the best solutions.
Mhm.
And in order to do that, you really have to stay abreast of the constantly changing regulations that apply to health insurance in our country. Health insurance can be a very convoluted and complex industry, and really, taking the time and having the desire to really explore, staying abreast of all these constantly changing regulations really puts me in a position where I am able to take that knowledge that I gather by focusing only on health insurance and being able to dedicate all my time to just health insurance and really use all that knowledge when it comes to the conversations that I have with my
Mhm.
clients. There's never any two individuals or two small businesses that are going to have exactly the same situations. So why would the same health insurance plan make sense for both of them? It really isn't the case most of the time. And so when you really get to analyze the specific medical and financial needs and situations of my clients, and then I have the knowledge because I focus only on health insurance and understand these constantly changing regulations, then I'm able to put my clients in the best position possible when it comes to their health insurance.
So then, knowing that solopreneurs and entrepreneurs obviously have a lot of relationships to juggle. There's the relationships that you have with your clients and the relationships that you have with prospects and leads and building that like, love, and trust factor. But then on the backside of your business, there's relationships with these service providers. And so knowing that there's going to be multiple relationships with multiple service providers can be so overwhelming to some people. And so, how do you help your entrepreneurs and your solopreneur clients so that it doesn't feel overwhelming to them to be in relationship with you, to utilize your services, to utilize your skills and your knowledge because it's so, so important. But man, that's a lot of people relationships we got to keep up with.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, my entire business is all has been built entirely on building relationships,
Mm.
and whether that's relationship with clients, whether that's relationships with my partners, with industry affiliates, whatever the case may be, it's all about building strong relationships with them. And in order to build a strong relationship with someone, there has to be strong trust as the foundation. That
Yeah.
I think is key to having a healthy relationship. And so, what I focus on from day one when it comes to the people that I am helping is building that trust. And I think that's what makes me successful is that people know that when they're dealing with me, they're dealing with someone that they can trust, that's going to do right and give them the information that they need in order to make an informed decision and put themselves in the best position possible going forward.
Hmm. And so then when you're in this trust building process, what does that actually look like for you and your business? Is it you reaching out and having phone calls? Is it following up via email? Is it in-person conversations? How are you building trust with future clients?
Yeah, that's a great great question. When I look back at the early days, right, the start of my career, and when you're trying to gain new clients, there was a lot of that. Sometimes it was just as simple as taking someone that I spoke to over the phone one time, and was in perhaps in making a change with their health insurance, and then friending them on Facebook and other social media sites, and having them see that I am a trustworthy person, that I have websites and reviews and everything to that nature. Nowadays, it's just a matter of constant communication with my customers, whether it's a happy birthday message, not only for the customer or the policyholder, but sometimes when they have a 5-year-old child that isn't even a customer of mine or one of my policies that I help the parents with. But little things like that really show, hey, he remembered my child's birthday. And how did he do that, right? I save all my customers' phone numbers on my cell phone. So you're never going to call me Amy and I'm going to say, hi, this is Eliu. When you call me, I'm going to say, hi, Amy, how's it going? Little things like that really, I think, differentiate and goes a long way towards building that trust with my customers.
Well, so then as you're kind of in this building the trust phase, one thing I think that you're really great at is helping business owners really shift their view of health insurance. And I think that's an education piece that you really provide us entrepreneurs. And so kind of walk me through on what is the view that you have on health insurance for business owners? What are some of the things that you're hearing that we think we know as business owners, but you, as the subject matter expert, as the knowledgeable person in health insurance, you know, I'm going to say the right answer. And so, what are some of those things that you're kind of seeing and talking about when shifting those views of health insurance for business owners?
Well, one of the things that I come across is when I speak for the first time with someone and they say, hey, do you work with X, Y, and Z company or X, Y, and Z carrier? And then they'll mention a health insurance company, whether it's Cross, Anthem, United Healthcare, whatever the case may be. And then they'll say, well, because I want a policy with that carrier. And it always surprises when when I hear someone asking for a specific carrier. And the reason for that is because what's behind that desire of wanting to have a specific carrier is probably some pleasant experience that they had in the past in that carrier. What they don't understand a lot of times is that the circumstances today are very different from what their circumstances were when they had that policy. I get that all the time. People that used to work for large corporations with hundreds, sometimes even thousands of employees, and yeah, they had great insurance because it was a large group, and the employer was subsidizing a large component of the monthly premium for that plan that they had. Now, when they're an entrepreneur and it's just them or them and one or two other employees, you can't expect to have a coverage level at the same cost as when you had that policy under 2,000-3,000 employees.
Yeah.
And so really what shopping for health insurance, what I help all my customers do is, after I understand their specific situation, is, well, how can you get the best possible coverage at the lowest possible cost? And then I use my expertise and my knowledge of all channels of health insurance to help everyone that comes my way achieve that ultimate goal. How can I get the best possible coverage at the lowest possible cost?
Yeah. And so then I think, we've got 3 questions that you should really be asking your service providers or people that you're looking to hire to support you in your business. And so what I'd love to do is kind of go through these questions, make sure you got your pen and paper ready. So if you're driving or you're listening to this podcast episode and you're not able to get to a point where you can write these down, you can either press pause or come back later. But I think the first question that is really, really important that we should be asking is, we want to make sure that we're understanding the good and the bad that is available in the industry. So I'm going to use our industry as in email marketing and messaging. A frequent question I get asked is, well, what email software should I be using? And so we talk through what is needed by the business owner. And, I'm not here to sell email software. I'm here to help you to create the messaging to use the email software. But thankfully, we have Maria on our team who's also really great at helping you pick out the right software that is the right for you. But I think a good question as a business owner to ask a service provider is, what is the good and what is the bad based on the industry? And so with this question, Eliu, I guess, what is good health insurance? What is bad health insurance? How do we tell the difference between the two?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's a very important foundation when we begin our shopping of health insurance policies. Um, Good health insurance. Well, the first thing is you want to make sure that your health insurance policy provides unlimited coverage. In other words, if God forbid you were to have a bad experience like the one that I had in 2009 when I was in that big car accident and I'm hospitalized for 28 days, the medical bill surpassed the $1.5 million mark.
Wow.
And so if you have a policy that provides coverage for up to $1 million, it sounds good when you're perhaps purchasing it and you're healthy and you're like, I've never been to a doctor in my life, $1 million. Wow, I can never imagine reaching that amount. Well, guess what? But the unexpected event can happen. And before you know it, you can reach those amounts very, very quickly. So make sure you have a health insurance policy that provides unlimited coverage. That is the first component. And then with that, once you have health insurance policies that are only providing unlimited coverage, then you get into the two key components of a policy that determine how good your insurance is. And the first component is your network. We've all heard of HMOs and PPOs and EPOs and POS. Well, there's a reason why those things exist in a health insurance policy. They each have their limitations, different characteristics. There's obviously some that are going to be better than others and are going to affect the cost of the policy. But it's important that you understand what network you have in your specific policy, because that is one of the two components that are going to determine how good your insurance is. And then the second component is your exposure to out-of-pocket expenses when you do receive medical attention. There is no perfect health insurance policy in the under 65 years of age channel. After 65, if you are on Medicare, yes, you can come pretty close to perfect coverage. But under 65 years of age, there is no perfect health insurance policy. And so what that means is that whenever you seek medical care, chances are you're going to be paying something out of pocket. In fact, having a copay, which is a specific amount of money that you, the insured, are going to pay first, be the first one to pay, is actually a positive. It is a benefit that is provided in some good health insurance policy. So you're going to pay out of pocket. How much you pay out of pocket when you receive medical care? Well, that's the second component that determines how good your coverage is. The lower your exposure to paying out of pocket costs when you receive medical care, the better your coverage is.
That makes sense. And so then when you think about evaluating the service that I'm purchasing from you and the effectiveness of that service, you mentioned the two key components, but how do you evaluate the effectiveness of what you're providing to your clients so that we can go through and say, yeah, Eliu was right. This is really great coverage, or, this is kind of missing the mark. And for next year, we need to think about this thing differently. So how are you evaluating that?
Yeah, well, very good question. And that stems from being able to take a personal interest in the specific situation of the person, the family, or the group that I am working with. Because like I have mentioned, there's no two groups or families or individuals that have exactly the same needs. So really getting an understanding for the specific, both medical as well as financial needs of the person that I am working with helps me give them the information that then they can use to understand different options and coverage that I am presenting and make an informed decision as to what's going to be best for them. A simple example, right? When we talked about the importance of a network,
Yeah.
PPO, large nationwide networks, you can go anywhere, no need for referrals, coverage both in and out of network. Very different than from an HMO policy where you get coverage only in network,
Mm.
referrals from your gatekeeper, your primary care physician.
Yeah.
Not to say that HMOs aren't necessarily bad, but they are a lot more restrictive than a PPO policy. Well, what is the specific situation of the person that I am working with? Are they one of those individuals that, like myself, we don't go to the doctor very often? Maybe we get our yearly checkup and we just want good protection in case that unexpected events were to ever occur. Or are they someone that's managing some kind of perhaps chronic illness and need to go to the doctor and their specialists 2, 3, 4 times a month, perhaps more? Are there medications that are involved that they would need to get benefits from their health insurance policies? So really understanding the specific needs of the individual, I'm able to assess whether or not their specific needs is matching the coverage characteristics of the policy that they have. And if it's not, then I can present alternatives.
I like that. So then when you're really getting into those deep conversations with people, you're able to basically come off with a guide of how to evaluate the current effectiveness of their current situation and give that suggestion of the future situation. But I'm going to also point out something that I don't know that we've really nailed it yet is Eliu, you're a solo business owner as well, right? Like you're an entrepreneur yourself. And we're saying entrepreneurs can't do everything all on their own. So I'm curious, who do you partner with or collaborate with to really help, let's say, me, your quote unquote pretend client here, as I'm asking you those questions? So who's in your partnership and collaborations to really help you provide me the best services out there?
Well, there's a lot of partners within the industry that I team up with. Like I mentioned earlier, there is not only a health piece when it comes to the health insurance policy that you purchase and what are your medical needs, but there's also a financial component. As a matter of fact, health insurance is under the Department of Finance, right? That's who regulates health insurance. It is a financial component as well. And so really being able to team up with a lot of people in the financial services industry, whether that be CPAs, the whole array, really allows me to, once I go in there and I'm evaluating the individual families or small businesses' financial needs, really have a wide array of resources that they can then tap into to not only get better coverage and save money on their health insurance, but also be able to do so across all the other financial components of the business that oftentimes come into play, and that there could be a lot of savings, increasing the bottom line, right? The end of the day profit dollars that a
Right.
small business can have. And, the list goes on and on. I have been able to build a wide array of referral partners with industries that can really be assets to my clients as well.
That makes a lot of sense. So, if we think about the three questions that we think you should be asking any support team member before you bring them on or a service provider, is one, describe or explain to me what is good service and what is bad service within your industry. Secondly, how are we evaluating the effectiveness of the service that you will be providing me? And then lastly, what partners and collaborations do you have as a service provider to keep you at your highest level to provide me the best services? And so, Eliu, I think we have a couple minutes for just an example of how you've been really able to achieve and work through all three of these kind of questions with your clients. Can you give us, you've given us micro examples, but let's just kind of bring a full picture example together.
Yeah, I can give you, there's a lot of examples, but just one as it pertains to a small business owner, a solopreneur, or an entrepreneur with a couple of employees. A lot of times, especially when people have made that leap and they've left a large corporation and now they are starting their own business, and perhaps they have a couple of employees on board, they want to provide the best possible coverage, not only for themselves and their families, but also for those employees.
Mhm.
And usually what I find happens is that the number one idea that business owners have in mind when they reach out to me for insurance is what they're familiar with when they had that job, right? That group
Right,
plan. Basically, are given options by your HR person, and they say, well, this is the HMO, this is the PPO, this is the
right,
low deductible plan, this is the high deductible plan. How much do you want to pay? And then whatever plan that the employee chooses, everyone that's on that plan is going to have the same coverage
right.
at the same cost. And that is one solution. That's one of the five channels of health insurance in our country. It's a group plan. However, when you're dealing with small business owners, there are a lot of other options that are available that can help, if we explore them, achieve the ultimate goal of having the best possible coverage at the lowest possible cost. And an example of that would be an employee in a small group that perhaps is diabetic and has a very expensive need for a very expensive diabetes medication. And so, as the business owner, we want to make that employee of ours have coverage that is going to help them with that expensive medication. If we go that route of getting the one size fits all coverage and pay more because we want to give more benefits to that one employee that needs that expensive medication, then we're paying more not only for that one employee, we're paying more for all the employees in that group, regardless of whether they need that expensive medication or not. And so a lot of times what happens if we go that route and we explore only that route is either the employer is going to say, I can't afford this. And then the diabetic employee is going to suffer because they don't have the coverage for their medication. Or the employer is going to be generous and say, okay, let's get this coverage. And then he's going to be paying a lot more than he or she needs because now everyone else that doesn't need that medication is also getting coverage for that medication.
Gosh, I never
Yeah.
thought of this.
Yeah. And so at the end of the day, what really needs to happen is understanding the specific characteristics of each group, especially when we're dealing with small businesses and insurance companies have no way of mitigating their risk. Insurance is all about risk. If you have 1,000 employees, there's a lot less risk for the insurance company. If you have 5 employees, you're a high risk group for the insurance company. So really understanding the importance of risk mitigation in insurance, understanding the specific financial and medical needs of each person in that group really allows me to provide the information to not only the employer, but also the employees so they can make informed decisions when it comes to their coverage. And at the end of the day, achieve the ultimate goal. Get the best possible coverage for everyone in that group at the lowest possible cost.
I love that. I love that. Well, thank you for breaking this down. I feel like one, I've learned a lot about health insurance from just this quick 20-minute conversation. But two, I think again, you really show up, you really stand in the belief of service, of true relationship building and connecting really deeply, which is so important when growing a sustainable business. So, Eliu, where can people find out and connect with you? Where can they find you?
Yes, simple way is just go directly to my website. You can click on get a quote, and obviously you're going to get not a quote, you're going to get a phone call from me. But it's a quick way of reaching out to me and having all my contact information. That website is ushaagent.com/Eliu Vinas. That's ELIUVINAS.
Awesome. Wonderful. And we'll have that link in the show notes. So if any of you want to reach out to Eliu with any questions that you have about health insurance and what's the right service for your business, please, please, please connect with him. And remember, here at the Joyful Business Revolution, we're really here to help you grow as well. And so if you're sitting here listening to this conversation and you're like, heck, I don't even know what service provider I should be bringing on, you don't need to make these decisions alone. So again, because you're a solo business owner does not mean that you should be doing business in a solo silo. So I'd love to speak with you to look about how we can talk about your aligned marketing and aligning that with your purpose, really talking about how you grow a business that is filled with freedom, fulfillment, and purpose. So feel free to schedule a 20-minute call with me. The link will be in the show notes. And I can't wait to meet with you to help you expand to your next level of success. So thank you for joining me today for this conversation, Eliu, and we hope you all have a beautiful day. Bye-bye.